Good morning, good day, wherever you are. Hayom, hayom, hayom yom. Beis Tammuz. Okay, the Alter Rebbe writes in his siddur. The siddur that we use is the according to the Nusach Hari, as given over by the Alter Rebbe. But there are a couple of siddurim that are called by the name of the Alter Rebbe's siddur, and these siddurim have maimorim in them, Hasidic maimorim on the davening, very beautiful stuff, sometimes very dense stuff, but stuff that really useful in cultivating his mindedness to learn some of those maimorim that are placed on the particular pages in davening. So he writes in his siddur the following: "It is proper to say before prayer, Areni mekabel elai mitzvahs aseh," we say it every morning, right? And this is the Alter Rebbe's siddur according to the Nusach Arizal, which means I hereby take upon myself to fulfill the mitzvah, v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, to love my friend as myself. This is the beginning of davening. So this means that the precept of Ahavas Yisrael is the entry gate through which man can pass to stand before God above to daven. By merit of that love, the merit of our Ahavas Yisrael, the worshipper's prayer is accepted. Now, there's another vort, I think it's in Hayom Yom, someone can correct me if I'm wrong. We discussed the point, which is greater? The question is asked, Ahavas Yisrael or Ahavas Hashem? Love of your fellow Jew or love of God? And the answer is love of your fellow man, because you love that which your beloved loves. Okay, continuing our discussion of Hashem and his midos. Lessons in Tanya. Page 965. A little below the middle of the page. And Likutei Amorim, page 174. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines up from the bottom over on the left. Okay, what we have said, and just preface a bit to today, Iyu v'gamehi chad, v'yu hayehi chad. I know that's garble to some of us, but it's an expression from the Zohar. It's not brought here on the Tanya, in the Tanya at this moment, but it expresses what we're trying to, the point that the Alter Rebbe is explicating for us. It's a Zohar. The Zohar says, Ihu v'chayehi chad, he and his life force are one. Ihu v'gamehi chad, he and his kalim, or all his causations, are also one. There is nothing separate from him. So in a discussion which we are in the middle of Hashem's attributes, the Alter Rebbe is meaning for us to understand that his attributes are not something separate from him. He and his attributes are one. It's interesting in English, the word attribute, we say, I attribute something to him, right? There's the thing and that which I'm attributing to him. But in regard to Hashem, he and his attributes are one. So keeping that in mind, we'll start today's Tanya. As I said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines up from the bottom. Al-Derek Mashal, the Alter Rebbe again gives a mashal for the unity of Hashem in his midos, meaning that all the attributes that he exhibits are not something separate from him. This was his mashal, remember, yesterday, and he's used this to bring out various different things of the light of the sun in the sun and the light of the sun when it's away from the sun. But it never is away from the sun, because the light cannot shine without, the sunlight cannot be sunlight without its connection, maintaining the connection to its source, which is the sun. So that's a metaphor that we have on the table of the light of the sun, which is the midos, as we'll see today, are not something that we can say are something separate from him. They're part and parcel of him, and therefore he himself is invested in all of his midos. Adairu Mashal, by way of example, B'yem Rishon, on the first day of Sheshis Yemei Bereshis, of the 6 days of creation, Niglis Midas Chesed. What was revealed was the midah of Chesed. Chesed is extension, giving out. Gevura is contracting, holding back. And the first thing he did, he reached out, he extended himself out of himself, and he created light, right? The first, that's an effusion of something brilliant, something shining, and from himself, which is Chesed. Kolula mikol midoisov. And this Chesed included all the midos, HaKadoshis, the holy midos, and included his Ratzainai, his will, V'Hachmasei, and his wisdom, Ubenasai, his understanding, V'Daitoi, all of that. In other words, he himself is invested, and this is the word we're using now, Meluboshim, enclosed, invested in the midah of Chesed. Oborabo Esaor, and he created in it, this midah, the effect of light, the effect of illumination, from concealment to illumination. Right? He's Megala, light. Light illuminates the room. He's now created a space that's illuminated, and it's like, instead of working in the dark, because now we're going to do the works of creation, he's shed a light and created a light space so the other midos can come in and combine with them and create what we call the creation. And that was done, b'mayma yehi or, in his expression, which metaphorically use the metaphor of speech, the Meruach piv kol tzva'om, right? The pasuk says, with the breath of his mouth are all the hosts of heaven. So he said this, what did he say? Yehi or, let there be light. What is light? Light is, as I said, it's the midah of Chesed, which is bechinas ispashtus, flowing outward, flowing downward and outward to illuminate a space. Hamshachas or la'olam, and a drawing down of light to the world, milamaila, from above. And here again, we usually touch milamaila from a deeper level where that singular ray was concealed back in its source, but always connected with its source, like the ray of the sun in the sun. It's much, he drew out this light to the world from above, and drew it out into the world, from the highest of the world, from one end of the world to the other end of the world. And this ray of light we call the midah of Chesed, kindness. Rak, however, since this is he invested in the midah, so all the attributes are invested in it. And we're going to point out particularly the midah of Gevura for a reason. So in this midah of Chesed, Kalula gam midas Gevura, was included also the midah of Gevura, which is the opposite, constraint. So that midah of Gevura constrained it so that this light didn't remain only spiritual, as the light is at deeper levels. And it also became included in Olam Hazeh. Olam Hazeh, and really all the Olamas, all the worlds, but particularly Olam Hazeh, is characterized by individuation, particularization, all the words we've used before. So where does particularization and individuation come from? It comes from Gevura, the idea of constraining, so that there can be compartmentalization, there can be individual things. So this is an emanation of light force and light, but in a way that it contains within it the possibility and the reality of separate things, which we call the Bria, the creation. So Gevura is niskala, that's the word he's used, shekalula bohem, in chesed is included the midah of gevura, and gam mislabish bo'olam hazeh, so that the light can be included and come down here and clothed in something like this world, shehu bechinas gevul v'tachlis, which is a world of boundedness and limitation, which are the characteristics, of course, of gevura. Shehu mahalat tochav shana, there's dimensionality from one level of the heaven to another. There's 500 years, and that's just an allusion to the notion of measurement and spatiality. From the earth, from the earth to the first level of the firmament. And there's measurement from east to west. All of that function of measurement is a function of gevurah. So in the first day, chesed, there's kolula, there's included in it the midah of gevurah. But b'yem sheni, now sheni is the day which is predominantly the expression of gevurah. Niglas midas gevurah, there, because what did he, on the second day he created the rakia, that's the firmaments. The firmaments are the whole notion of division and separation. But in that was kolula mishar midos. All the other midos were included in them as well as his, as he said on the previous page, as you said earlier, today, his will and his wisdom and his understanding. All the other spheros are included with it. And with that predominant midah of gevurah, he created the firmament. B'maimer, with the expression, when he said, first day he said yehi or, light with gevurah mixed in, and second day the gevurah yehi rakia, let there be a division with chesed mixed in. B'toichamayim, let there be a firmament b'toichamayim, within the water. Water is the uninterrupted flow, and rakia is holding back to create separations. And gevurah is also the idea of separation, distinction, as I said before. Gevurah is responsible, the primary responsibility for the distinctiveness and the diversity and the separateness and the individuation of things. So that's the idea of mavdil, separation ben mayim layat mayim, from layers of water, layers of the water. Shehi bechinas simsum, which is gevurah is the midah of simsum, v'gevuras, and it's the midah. Simsum is a function of the midah of gevuras. Lahalim, in order to conceal mayim elyonim, haruchnim, the upper supernal waters, mimayim atachtainim, from the lower waters. So what does this accomplish? This accomplishes that, as we say, that simsum is for the sake of a revelation. Simsum is gevurah. Revelation is chesed. They work together. They're nichlal, one with the other, in order that we should be blessed with the ability to exist as separate entities, and at the same time, that's the gevurah, the separate entity, and at the same time participate in and be infused with and have the reality invested within us, and the ability to bring to consciousness the allness, which is the uninterrupted flow of chesed. And through this gevurah, ultimately, nisgashnu hatachtonim, the lower waters became physicalized, right? The spirit also becomes negush, and it becomes is subject to gevurah. Each world, Atzilus, Bria, Yetzirah, etc., all the way down, are less revelation. The lessening of the revelation is a function of the gevurah, but the revelation which is in it is a function of the chesed. But this revelation gets more and more concealed until it becomes actual physical stuff down here in the lowest world. The Havdalim Elyonim, as the upper waters are separated from the lower waters, or the lower waters are separated from the upper waters. And in this, and this is what he says, and what I've been saying, he says the midah of chesed is included in the midah of gevurah. The oilam chesed yabana, as it says, the world is built with chesed. And I've mentioned before a number of times the drush on this in Hasidus, oilam, world, ayin lamed mem, is the same word as helam, concealment. The concealment, you could read it this way, the concealment, which is what creates distinct, disparate worlds, is it for the sake of a chesed. That the chesed, the godly infusion, the infusion of godliness should be revealed, but in a way that we and the worlds can take it. And that's why olam chesed yabana, the world is built with kindness. Shakol, because the kindness is, shakol kedei shetira tira hayabasha. The whole kindness is that there should appear the dry land, the odam oleha, and that there should be us, human beings, odam, on that dry land, la'avad Hashem, to serve Hashem. V'chein kulam, and this, so he gives this example of the hiskalulus of chesed in Gevurah and Gevurah in chesed, and he says v'chein kulam, all the midos are like this. Again, the midos are not something we say attribute, they're not attributable to him, they're emanations from him, like the light of the sun from the sun, and therefore the mucker, the source, is included and is brought along with them. They're never separate from it. He and his life force are one, he and his creations, his kalim, his vessels are also one with him. And this is what Eliyahu, a Nabi, says in this part of the Zohar called the Tikkunim. And by the way, the expression that I said earlier, is also from the Zohar. This is what Eliyahu Navi says in the Tikkunim Sham. He says that the whole purpose of this mingling, or histalamus, we'll use the Hebrew word, inter-inclusion of Chesed and Gevurah is lachazor, to show eches naheg olma, how it is he who is conducting the world. In other words, these attributes are not separate from him. They are emanations from him with which he conducts the world, b'tzedek u'mishpat, with justice or law, right? Tzedek tirdoif, you should pursue justice. I mean, also means righteousness, but here it means law and and judgment. Tzedek, which is righteousness, but it's also justice. Tzedek, that is ihudin. Since it's justice, it's associated with the midah of din, right? Gevurah, justice. Mishpat and judgment, ihurachamet. When a judge comes to judge, the Torah tells us that he should always incline to the side of mercy. The side of mercy. So kulalach zohar, all of this inter-inclusion of these midos, to show us how the world is conducted. And this is important. It's not that he has these midos, that these are attributes. Although we use that word in English, they always translate it attributes. But as I say, it suggests something which shouldn't be suggested, with that it's something attributable to him, because they're not attributable to him. They're part and parcel of him, but manifestations of him in ways that have particular characteristics as a result of tzimtzum. They can have particular characteristics, chesed, gevurah, etc. So La'ad the Islot said is not that he has tzedek, yediyah, a known tzedek, the ihudin, v'lei mishpat, that he is the law and not and v'lei mishpat, yediyah, the ihu rachame. And as we said earlier, remember we speak about knowledge, the knowledge that he has. He doesn't acquire the knowledge, as it says, it's within, as the Rambam says, it's with a knowledge of himself that he knows everything. So again, these attributes are not something attributable to him, they are part and parcel of him. When we say it's not that he has these things, but he is these things. He is he is merciful. And yet at the same time, he is not of these things at all. This is a ringer, right? He's not of these things at all, because he is the source of them all. He is not of these things. These things are of him. They're of, part of him. And that is today's Tanya. So, what's on your mind?
Good morning. I never thought of it this way, but it seems that the physical, which our world is so enthralled with, it seems to me that that's the midah of gvura.
Physicality is one of the results of the midah of gevurah. Correct. You can't have the physical without so-called shrinking it down, although it's not a pure shrink, but we'll use that for a minute. And then you get physical. That's what he said, until it comes down to olam hazeh hagashmi. Yes. Yes, it is.
So that is a very interesting thing, because it's saying something which we know, but in a different manner. When you make choices between like waking up earlier and so that you have time for chitas in the morning or sleeping longer, if you choose ruchnius, you're choosing chesed. And I mean, maybe this is saying it already, like a conclusion. That's what my takeaway is. When you choose ruchnius, even though at the moment it seems to be gevura, it's not. Choosing ruchnius is choosing chesed, and choosing comfort is choosing gevura. It's limiting. You're limiting yourself.
Well, I mean, choosing to be comfortable in the physical.
Yeah, that's gevura. That's
limiting. Yeah, okay. You're choosing the result of the contraction, as opposed to the light which is within the contraction. Yeah. Good point. Hayinka, your hand's up.
Question on in the beginning, which is the beginning of today's chitas. He used chesed and then created or.
Yeah.
So chesed is above the sefirot, but it's also in the sefirot below keser, right?
It's amongst those spirits which in the hierarchy, yes, are below keser. That whole hierarchy starts with chokhmah, bina, das, and then chesed. Yes.
So it's interesting just that it's above it.
What's above? It's above what?
That chesed was the beginning of the simsum and the creation. Then it's also lower in the sefirot.
Lower than chokhmah, bina, das, you mean?
Well, no, I think what it isn't. I guess so. I don't know. I have to look at the sefirot in front of me. I had it in mind, but now I'm getting confused.
No, don't get confused. We have crown on top,
right?
And we have Chabad, chokhmah, bina, das, and then we start with the midos, the first of which is chesed. So, what are you saying about?
So I'm saying it's interesting that chesed was above, which is before there were even any sefirot that he used to create. That's how the world was created, with chesed. But then it comes in much lower in the sefirot again.
Why do you mean it was above? Chesed was above.
Because it says it was used with chesed. He created the or in the very beginning of today.
Okay, that's not exactly correct. The or ein sof, the light, or ein sof, was unto himself and not revealed before there was any, quote, creation or any simsa. Right? So, or ein sof is a reality, but it's not revealed until there's some kind of tzimtzum. And the first revelation of that light, which revealed before the Tzimtzum, is through the sphere of Chesed. So Chesed is a gilui of the light, and Gevura is a contraction of the light. Everything is a function of light. Light is you could equate, for metaphorical purposes and true, light to be energy. There's an energy which is all of himself before the Tzimtzum is the energy that exists before that energy becomes megala, revealed to something else, because there is no something else. So what did he do? And very simply, without going elaborating, this is the language of the Tzimtzum. He took himself to the side, so to speak. He took that or Ein Sof, created an empty space. This is the language of Kabbalah. He created an empty space, and he injected into that empty space a very small beam of light, which is called in the language of Hasidus the kav, the beam, right?
Mhm.
So from there starts to emerge the multiplicity, the beginning of multiplicity. Once he makes small, there's Gevura operating on light, even way before the creation, right? We had before the creation and then after the Tzimtzum. So this kav starts before the Tzimtzum, and it comes after the Tzimtzum, it comes out, but it's now in a narrow form. That narrow form, as it gets projected, as it were, farther away, and nothing's far away, but at levels lower than he himself, becomes the light. That's the energizing force of everything, all multiplicity. That's the Midah of Chesed.
Okay.
Does
Okay.
that make sense?
Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, I'm trying to put definitions on that Hashem is above.
Yeah. So when we started today, Al Dari Mashal B'Yom Rishon, on the first day, right? There were no days before then. Days is a function of time. Time didn't exist in the Or Ein Sof Lifnei HaTzimtzum, before the Tzimtzum. So time is also a function of Gevura, right? Separation. We have moments in time, seconds, minutes, etc. That's a Gevura function, right? So on day, but for that day to exist, for anything to exist, there has to be an infusion of the Or Ein Sof, which is Mechaya Umehava, everything, which enlivens and brings everything into existence. So the instantiation of that combo in a way that produces time and place is the Midah of Chesed.
Okay. Got it.
Oilam Chesed Urban. The actual building, the building of the world comes from the light as it's invested in the Midah of Chesed. Okay?
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Anybody else? Sarah. Sarah
Morning.
Sand. Sarah Sand.
Just Sarah. Good morning. I wonder if the question that was just being asked is more about perspective, meaning that it says that Hashem created the world with love. In other words, it was like, if we put that attribute, God, so to speak, it's a outpouring of love. Let's call it love.
Well, Chesed, he calls it Chesed. Chesed Olam Yibana.
Okay.
Kindness.
By choice, I'm going to use the word love. You'll understand in a minute maybe why. Chesed is love, it's true, but I'm using the word that then when Hashem created the Tzimtzum and withdrew himself in order to bring the light of all creation into the world, so then that includes all of the sphere, including the supernal sphere of Keter, and including the intellectual sphere of Chachma, Bina, and Das, and Chesed and Gevura. But that's a perspective that has to do with the creation of us, of humankind in the world. And the love perspective of Hashem having a ratzon, a will to bring everything into existence, is a perspective about God. And I'm wondering if that was behind the question that was just being asked.
Well, we'll let the questioner answer that. I'm not clear on what you're saying, but
I
maybe the
understand.
questioner. Okay.
I understand because it was Hashem's chesed that he used to create the world and to create us. And
Yes.
then the Sphirot have all the other, has chesed and gevurah and all the midos within it.
True.
In terms of differentiation.
Right.
True.
Thank you.
Okay. Ubechain. So what? What do we do with this?
We think of everything in terms of a chesed.
Well, that is amazing because, of course, we always look and they seem to be easy to find correlations with Hayom Yom. What did the Yom Yom tell us today?
Right.
That Ava Yisrael, is the beginning of it all. Right? The beginning of it all is love. That's it. Okay.
Sounds good.
Anybody else? Sounds good is right. Okay. I'm here to Hashem tomorrow.
A wonderful
Bye-bye.
day.
Thank you.